Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series. Hey everyone, welcome to the Figure It Outcast. I am Adam Koralik, and this is, of course, the Patreon podcast. If you're getting this early, it's because, of course, you're a Patreon backer with early access. Or if you're hearing this publicly, thank you for still listening. That's awesome of you. So believe it or not, this is the 12th episode of this show, so it's been 1 year now. I can't believe that I've actually been doing this for a year. Usually, Chip is with me. However, he has the flu, so I'm actually going to be just doing this episode by myself. So hopefully you still enjoy it. But yeah, man, it's what's going on with you guys? Things have been cool for me lately, man. Like I went to Japan. I had a really good time there. You guys will be seeing a lot of videos on that. Obviously, again, if you have early access to the podcast, which means you also get early access to all the videos that I do on the channel, then you already know some of this because you've been seeing them. But the public version, a lot of those videos have come out already at this point. Sorry, I'm kind of like thinking forward into the future. If you're unaware, you get this at the beginning of the month if you're on Patreon, and you get it at the end of the month if you're not, which is totally fine. Either way, whatever you want to do. Either way, thanks for the support. But yeah, we're gonna talk about I'm gonna talk about some subjects here, and we'll just kind of chit chat, have fun, hang out. It'll be great. So upcoming videos, as I mentioned, I did a lot of stuff when I was in Japan. So there's a lot of store videos, and there's a bunch of other like little item videos that I'm going to be doing, some of which have already rolled out publicly, some have not. But yeah, I'm excited about a lot of stuff I got to do there, and hopefully you guys enjoy that too. I think I ended up making 6 store videos in Japan, and the sick thing is I ended up going to like more than like 20 stores. It's just that I had enough footage for around 6. So yeah, and the number of pickups I got was retarded. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. But anyway, let's move on to our first subject here, shall we? Now, the first subject comes from a very infamous Patreon backer. This is from Corey Marsh. He had a subject in which he wanted us, or well, I guess it's just gonna be me, wanted to talk about. Specifically, he wanted to know, why does, for example, Sega hire fans that make mods of their games, where Nintendo does exactly the opposite. They tend to like ban them and shut them down. If you're unfamiliar with this, there are, Sega for a long time, like somebody will make like a fan version of a Sonic game, right? And in many cases throughout history, like the fan-made game that appears for free can outshine a lot of Sega's actual titles, including Sonic games. And a lot of times Nintendo, the same thing happens with them. People will come forward and make like AM2R, which was like a Metroid 2 remake. And then I remember there being this 3D version of Super Mario 64 that someone made just like the first level of, and Nintendo went in and shut them down. Now, the difference between the two is that Sega does not shut these people down typically. What they do is they go, they find them and they offer them jobs. So like Sonic Mania, which is coming up, which is a game I would have really liked to have got, except it's going to have no physical edition. Despite having a weird collector's edition, there's no physical either disc or Switch cart in that case. But yeah, in that case, Sonic Mania has a lot of developers on the team that were actually fans that made a bunch of these games with no intention of ever being Sega employees. Now, Shenmue 3, for example, which is not actually a Sega title, but of course it has their markings all over it because Shenmue technically is their intellectual property. Same story. There was a fan of Shenmue who made like a bunch of Shenmue models, and they were like, fuck it, hire the guy. Let's bring him into Shenmue 3. So the question basically is, why does Sega do that and Nintendo does exactly the opposite? Well, one can only guess on why internally why they feel the way they feel, but historically speaking, Sega has always been more open to that kind of thing. If you look at examples, things like the Game Genie, Nintendo went to court against Galoob, trying to stop them from interfering, modifying their games, all that stuff. Whereas Sega was the only company ever to say, "This is amazing, let's license this," and they actually put their name on it. Sega has always had more of a like, fuck it, let's just see what happens kind of attitude. Now that costs them eventually, that they did go under basically for a reason. Nintendo though has, as we all know, is very infamously not community friendly with people celebrating their company through things like YouTube videos. You can't really do that, and they don't really like anybody messing with their intellectual property. I kind of get that a little bit more having gone to Japan now, because it was kind of explained to me a little differently when I was over there. In the West, we tend to perceive it like, why are they doing this? They're just being assholes. But the obvious answer from their perspective is they're very focused on Japan first and foremost as their central market. And that's where their philosophy comes from. And the philosophy is basically that Nintendo is the child-friendly, family-oriented company that has to have very strict control over their characters because their characters are so famous. And they just don't like the idea of anybody kind of meddling with that because it can hurt their brand as far as they perceive it. But the problem is their view is incredibly myopic. It does not go beyond that of Japan, whereas in the West, our view of things is very different, but they have a very hard time understanding that or necessarily even caring about that, which is too bad. So there's no simple answer as to why Sega, for example, hires people to do this, because Sega is a Japanese company too, so it's not like it's just a Japanese thing. It's just a culture of that office, I suppose. But one can only really speculate ultimately on what the answer is. I would say ultimately it's just that Sega's more chill than Nintendo, and while that sounds awesome to us, you can make the argument, well, obviously Nintendo did okay with that decision because they're still around and Sega really isn't. So yeah, approach it however you want, but I think that's basically all there is to it, is that it's just Nintendo is much more controlling over their properties and it extends to all things, not just games, but like, you know, anything that has to do with their intellectual property, which again, it really hurts them because they don't allow people to make their, you know, videos on YouTube with their games. They don't, which has hurt them horrifically. Like if they had allowed things like Super Mario Maker for the Wii U to have been spread everywhere across YouTube, kind of like Minecraft was, they could have saved the Wii U on that game alone, but they didn't. I remember reading an article just recently where there is fans trying to keep Super Mario Maker alive, like trying to keep the community of that alive, and Nintendo repeatedly shuts down their videos. And so there is literally, I'm not even joking about this, there's a community dedicated to keeping the game alive despite the fact Nintendo keeps trying to stop them from doing that. That is dedication on an almost abusive level. That's very bizarre. And it is really a shame that is Nintendo's philosophy towards their culture, towards the culture of the fan base, let's put it that way. It all to me stems from a misunderstanding of, I guess, the West, but it wouldn't hurt if we understood better that that's just how Nintendo is. They're focused more on the Japanese market and what they want to have happen in a quote-unquote proper Japanese market. And we have a hard time understanding that because the vast majority of us have never been there and have never lived in that. And I just visited there briefly and got a different explanation. And that's enough to at least make me kind of see why they do it. I don't agree with them doing it, but I at least get it a little more. And I think that that's just really all there is to it, man. I think that it's just that in the shortest possible answer, Sega is more fun than Nintendo when it comes to celebrating themselves. That's about it. So yeah, I wish I really had more to say on it, but I kind of don't. It's just the culture of those two companies. But the thing is, this isn't new. Like I said, they've been doing this forever. Like that's how they treated Galoob the same thing, like with the Game Genie. That's just how they are, man. So I hope that answers that. Thank you, Corey, for that. So I guess I'll just move on to the next subject here. This might be a shorter podcast, though. I apologize to that, everybody, because without Chip here, I don't have like someone to bounce off of and get two perspectives. So you're kind of just getting one perspective on a lot of things. But I'm trying to balance it. Tell me if you guys like it this way or not. I'd be very curious to find that out. But anyway, the next subject is one that I found interesting. This is about Call of Duty World War II. Now, I don't usually follow Call of Duty stuff too much because I haven't really cared about it in a long time. And I'm unique in that Call of Duty, to me, was always a good first single-player game. I never, ever cared about the online component of it. And I know that makes me in the minority. I get that. In fact, to me, this is wholly ironic. I understand this, but when Modern Warfare came out, to me, that was the one that like killed the franchise because, and I know that's the one like that's like everybody's favorite, but to me, I was like, oh, this is dumb as shit because this is not historically based. I always preferred when they were based on history because I find history interesting and it was like getting to play the history. But when you're just making up that history, it wasn't as good to me. So I'm actually very excited that they're making this particular game. Of course, I haven't played the game. I have no idea how realistic or unrealistic or whatever it'll be. But that's not the point of this discussion. The point of this discussion is that apparently under YouTube's new ad-friendly policies, and if you're not familiar with that, YouTube had a massive issue with a lot of companies lately where a lot of big companies, Walmart, for example, decided they no longer wanted to place ads in front of YouTube videos. The result of that is that monetization on YouTube has been crushed. And I know this personally as a YouTuber. My monetization fell something like 40% in the first month, and now it's down somewhere like 60%. Like the channel, I'm very sad to say to all of you, is kind of dying, along with a lot of people's channels. You may see a mass exodus from YouTube. A lot of your favorite YouTubers might start shutting down. It's just a sad truth. So I again want to thank everybody on Patreon because that now is just offsetting the damages caused by YouTube's latest round of problems. But anyway, so they created what are now, in an effort to compensate for the whole loss of ad sources, they're trying to create more family-friendly and ad-friendly, more appropriate videos. So they have to, I wouldn't say tell you what to make, but they are telling you to some extent what the rules are on what you can monetize. That way they have a greater control. Like, so Walmart knows they're putting a video, an ad in front of something that won't embarrass their company or whatever. So the reason we're talking about Call of Duty World War II is it turns out that YouTube has decided that game will be inappropriate for YouTube monetization. Now, you have to understand the irony of this. Call of Duty, very infamously, I mean, there was a good span there from like, I don't know, I'd say like 2011, you know, or 2000, maybe 2009 to like, no, it would have been later than that. It was like 2012 to like 2015 almost, where there was nothing but Call of Duty videos coming out of people because it was like the quick way to cash in, because for Call of Duty was like on another level of popularity. So everyone and their mother was making Call of Duty videos, and that's how tons of people were making a bunch of money on YouTube, was just playing Call of Duty. Entire careers were created and destroyed over that. Like I remember working once with a guy named Wings of Redemption. Like that was the entirety of his channel was just Let's Plays of Call of Duty. He didn't comment, he just played the game, and he was really good at it. But like that's what his channel was. I don't know if he's still around, unfortunately. But so basically, I just find this amazingly ironic that under YouTube's new system, Call of Duty, once the bread and butter of the entire gaming YouTube industry, if you will, is not monetizable. Or at least the monetization on it will be incredibly pitiful. That's kind of mind-blowing to me. But, I mean, that game specifically does not affect me, because as you guys know on this channel, I don't do Let's Plays. It's always commentary of some kind. Even if it ranges from things like this, like podcasts, to, you know, here's a store. Don't you guys want to hear more information about this store? Here's this particular game console. Here's all these items and what their deal is. You know, stuff like that. That's what I do. But that doesn't mean I'm not affected by it either. It's just that my stuff, fortunately, is not tagged as not ad friendly, but the lack of ads is what is hurting me. So that sucks. But you know, I'm not saying this to encourage anything on your behalf. I'm just giving you guys the facts. What you do with that information is up to you. And again, even if you watch me casually and you don't really care about me, but there's like some other guy you're like super passionate about, some other YouTuber, just be aware we are all being hit by this. It doesn't matter if it's PewDiePie or it doesn't matter if it's a guy with 3 subscribers. Like, everyone has been hit by this. And I'm telling you right now, be afraid, man. A lot of your favorite YouTubers are probably going to have to close up shop. And that sucks. And I talked about this a lot last month, but I'm gonna do a brief kind of mention here since we're kind of on the subject. But or maybe I talked about it in a live show, but either way, it's just simple economics. Like because I do this, I have this channel, I work on a total of 4 channels. That's basically my job. That's where I get the bulk of my revenue, right? And if I can't do that, if I can't make a living doing that, that means I have to go find other work. Logically so. But if I'm doing other work, that means I do not have the time or the, shall we say, financial justification to do this. Not that I don't want to. If I could just sit here and make videos for you guys all the time, if I was loaded and I was set for retirement and I didn't have to worry about it, I would do this anyway because I don't care about the money. But the reality is I'm not, so I have to pay my own bills, And that means I have to be making something off of this to be able to fund it and to continue doing it, which is an unfortunate economic reality. It's the world we chose to live in, and it sucks, but it is what it is. So a lot of YouTubers are going to have to close up shop, and I don't know if that's going to happen to me yet. Obviously, I don't know that yet. But I will tell you that I've looked at my analytics compared to where they were a month ago and then like 2 months ago. It's basically almost 50% completely in half. Like it's bad. So again, I really seriously want to thank all the Patreon backers because you've been more necessary than you ever were. Originally, when I created a Patreon page, it was just to give people a safe place to do that if they wanted to. And unfortunately now it's becoming more of a necessity, which fucking sucks, and I am sorry for all of that. Anyway, that depressing subject off the table. Call of Duty World War II as a game, I do want to check out, but I hope it has a decent single-player campaign. I don't care at all about the online play. The last one I played all the way through, I think, was Call of Duty Ghosts, and I remember laughing at how awful that single-player was, but I did finish it, because it wasn't hard, it was just stupid. But anyway, yeah, that's that subject. So speaking of Patreon backers, I do have a round of shout outs here, and I want to thank all these people a lot more than usual, man. This is the $20 tier. So basically everyone at this tier, you're getting early access to videos, but you're also getting a shout out in this podcast, and I'll talk about you a little bit. I will generally make stuff up because it's more amusing that way. But yeah, I seriously want to thank all of you. And I know that 2 of you are new. First of all, let's just go through this one at a time. Paul Lewis. Paul hits me up on Patreon all the time, just asking me questions and stuff, and I always answer him as soon as I can. Very nice guy from the UK. I believe, Paul, you joined like 2 months ago. Hopefully you're liking this so far. Paul's also great because if I make any sort of mistake on the Patreon, he's like the first to notify me that I made a mistake. Like the other day, I had an early access video available. I posted it, but I posted like a broken link, and he immediately was like, hey, your link's broken, you might want to fix that. And I was like, oh shit. So I did. So thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Next up is Robert Youssef. Now Robert is brand new. So obviously I don't know anything about you, Robert, but I bet you're a boss, and something tells me you're probably an amazing golfer, but you don't brag about it. That's why you're cool, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Colin, you are OG as fuck. Colin's been around since the beginning, and he's still here. I really appreciate that. You are a hero. And brand new as well is Trey Wagner, aka Cornbread Taco. This guy is amazing. So he's also a fan of my other channel, Game Society, and every once in a while he'll just dump down like $100 to get my my buddies on that channel like shit-faced. Like he'll buy them like 5 rounds of shots to get them all screwed up. It's pretty great. He's an awesome guy. So thank you, Trey, for not only supporting my other channel, but for also supporting this one. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to Paul, Robert, Colin, and Trey. You guys are awesome. I seriously very appreciative of all of you. And of course to everyone listening to this in general, because again, don't feel guilty if you're not a Patreon backer. That's fine. It really is okay. I appreciate that you're watching it in general. I appreciate that support. So now moving on. Next subject comes from Kyle Vaughn. You guys might remember him. Now, subjects, as I mentioned with Corey earlier, you can pick a subject for this podcast. That's the $50 tier. You get a subject, you get a shout out, you get early access, you get all that stuff. But anyway, Kyle did not have a particular subject in mind. He basically told me to just pick one. So I thought this would be a good one to pick on his behalf. This was a subject that the internet seemed to lose its mind over. And I don't really understand why, given history, but here it is. Nintendo announced the 2DS XL. And a lot of people just lost their shit being like, oh, people don't care about, or Nintendo has no faith in the Switch. Something's wrong. They're going back to the well, blah, blah, blah. The Switch is doomed to failure because of this. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head like, what exactly is the beef here? People always seem to have an issue with Nintendo releasing new hardware. I do not get it. But every time Nintendo announces some sort of platform, people get fucking angry with them. And I understand that Nintendo has a history, especially with their handhelds, of overdoing it with the amount of versions of their handhelds. I get that. This one, though, this does not surprise me in the slightest. Nintendo especially has a history of every single successful platform that they have a tendency to do a refresh model after their successor hardware is out. Handhelds aside, you can look at their consoles. They released the NES top loader after the SNES was out. They released the SNES Junior after the N64 was out. They released the Wii Mini after the Wii U was out. They do that. They also do that with all their handhelds. Every time the successor is out, like they did the GBA Micro after the DS was out. I believe they did some iteration of the DS after the 3DS was out. And it's just what they do. They just don't do it with the ones that don't do that well. Virtual Boy, obviously, they had no reason to. But as much as I love, the 64, the GameCube, and the Wii U, those were not like the massive sellers that the other home consoles were. So they never bothered to do refresh models. And so this one actually looks awesome to me. This will probably be like the best way to play the entire 3DS library in a few years, because the 2DS XL has all the additional hardware capabilities of the new 3DS. So there's like new 3DS specific games that require a little more horsepower. This device has that, but it's also 2D, which is frankly awesome. I never gave a shit about the whole 3D thing. And it's got that clamshell design that people really seem to like. I didn't actually like the clamshell design. I like the original 2DS more, but I can see why this one's better for portability. And so I don't see the major malfunction here. This is probably going to be like the best version of the 3DS in existence, and people have a problem with it. I don't get it. But yeah, I'm not going to get one like right away or anything, but this is definitely the first Nintendo portable, I mean, ignoring the Switch, I guess, potentially, that I've been at least moderately excited about in quite some time, for all the reasons previously stated. So, yeah, I just don't see the issue here. And on top of it, it even looks good. Like, it looks cool. So, I'll definitely pick one of those up at some point. I just don't know when. This is kind of a side story. But alright, so when I went to Japan, I don't think I mentioned this in any of my videos on Japan. I don't think I ever even showed this. But handhelds are obviously super popular over there. Like, super popular. And there's a very specific reason for that, which is kind of amazing. And it's going to take me a minute to explain this, but hear me out. So, believe it or not, the PC, like the personal computer, never really caught on in Japan, like in general. I don't mean for gaming. I mean like as a machine. So as a result, the internet actually over there totally sucks, which you would not expect. So everyone kind of stayed with their physical little things, including portability. So portables have, everybody uses internet on their phone, and everyone uses portable game hardware for gaming because of the internet being so problematic. What that essentially means, long story short, is that handheld platforms like the 3DS and all that are super common. So I remember going into multiple stores, like Book Off especially, which is a chain of stores over there that primarily focuses on books, but they also have a game section. And they would have massive amounts of 3DSs, like $10 each. Like, nobody even gives a shit. They're worthless because they just have so many of the damn things. Game Boys everywhere, except for the Game Boy Light. That was the only one I actually was looking for. And the cheapest I ever found it was $50. And in hindsight, I probably should have got it, but I was really hoping to find it for like $4 somewhere, which I don't know why I thought I would, but I was really hoping for that, but it never happened. But yeah, so yeah, that's interesting. I'm hoping, I kind of now in hindsight wish I had picked up a 3DS over there. I didn't end up doing that. I don't know why I didn't. I think I just it fell to the wayside. I probably should have done that. But yeah, so 2DS XL if that thing hits bargain bins in Japan and I get to go back to Japan, that might be the way I get one. I don't know. Or I'll just pick it up here eventually. But that was a fun little fact. I had no idea how worthless those things eventually become over there just because of the prevalence in which they are produced. So there you go. So Kyle, thank you very much for that subject. Very much appreciated, as well as your continued support on this Patreon. Now, moving on, I have a few more subjects here I thought might be kind of interesting. The first one is E3 and excitement for it. Now, if you're, ironically, now this one is more aimed towards the public, because if you're hearing this subject at the beginning of May, which is when this comes out for Patreon backers, E3 is still about a month and a half away. But of course, if you're hearing this publicly, it's only a couple weeks away. Now, I was just thinking about what games we could potentially be excited about, or what announcements in general, or just the E3 as an entity. Like, what are we excited about seeing this year? Now, I always enjoy the primary shows, you know, the Microsoft show, the Sony show, the Ubisoft show, the EA show, and if Nintendo does a real show, I would enjoy that. But I can't, obviously I can't name any specifics because E3 is like generally when they want to do surprises, right? But obviously I'm looking forward to seeing the show. But the thing I think that I'm most excited about seeing firsthand is, I'm betting you that Microsoft will show us Scorpio finally. We know more about the tech of it, you know, like more of its capabilities and stuff, none of which was super exciting. It was all kind of like, I think we knew that, but to actually see it in person, well, not in person, but you know what I mean, will be really very cool. I'm excited about that, and I really want Nintendo to do a real show. Last year, watching their stupid Treehouse thing nearly killed me. I was doing like recaps of every primary show from E3 last year, and if you guys remember, there was a still of me from the Nintendo show where my face, I was just like face palming the desk, you know, like my head was just down because I couldn't stand like how boring their show was. Because what Nintendo has a history of doing now, or at least in the last couple of years, is that they don't do like you know, the half hour to an hour blitz of entertainment. They do, one guy comes out onto a very private little stage and talks about this game briefly, and then for like an hour they talk about that same game. And last year anyway, it was primarily their portable stuff, which made sense because what they weren't telling you, even though we all kind of knew it, was that the Wii U had no future, so they weren't really focusing on that, but they also didn't want to show you all of the Switch stuff because they wanted that to be a surprise. So they had to kind of milk and stretch out, frankly, a thin lineup. And I'm just hoping that they don't have that problem this year. I hope that because they have the Switch out now, they hit it, you know, out of the park, and they have like a really exciting time. E3 though, I can't promise anything, but it's actually looking incredibly probable that I will be there, which I was not expecting. I won't say how, I got an invitation to attend, which has happened before, but this one was slightly different. When I'm more aware of what I can and can't say, I will let you know, but it's looking highly likely that I will be at E3 this year. So if you're attending E3, keep an eye out. You might see me wandering around. But yeah, I mean, what are you guys excited about? Like, what else are you thinking of that's coming up that you know of that you're excited to see? If I get to go, which again, it looks probable that I will. I've never been to an E3 before, so I'm not entirely certain of what to expect. But obviously, I'd love to demo things and just kind of be part of that atmosphere and everything and just see what's up. A lot of people are going to ask me if I think we're going to, because Shenmue 3 is supposed to come out later this year, if we're going to see a bunch of Shenmue 3 stuff at E3. I would bet you right now that Shenmue 3 gets delayed until 2018. And I will bet you that if we see anything from Shenmue 3 at E3, it will be a small thing. I don't think we're going to see some major announcement, because it's not a game announcement anymore. Now it would just be a progress update, and typically E3 is not really reserved for that unless it's something that just really everyone is waiting on and the date for it is impending. Like, you might see an announcement like that if they're like, oh, by the way, and it comes out in like 2 weeks. Then you would see that. But if they're like, oh no, the game comes out in like a year and a half from now, they're not going to bother. So I wouldn't expect to see much from Shenmue 3 at E3 if you see anything at all. Now, with that in mind, since I said I will probably be going to E3, I can tell you of some other things I'm definitely going to in the event that you live in any of these areas and you want to go to conventions, you have any interest in all in meeting me or anything like that, here's where I will be. At the time this goes up for Patreon backers, it's the beginning of May, but if this is up publicly now, I am literally in Winnipeg at FanQuest. FanQuest is a convention in Winnipeg, Canada, that I'm, again, if this is public, that I'm currently attending. If you're in Winnipeg, I'm there. Hello, hi, come on out. Otherwise, FanQuest is over, or I'm sorry that you missed me. But I've never been to Winnipeg before, so I have no idea what to expect. I've never been to this convention before, so again, yeah, no idea what's gonna happen really. I'm actually not going there for my channel. I'm going there as Fuhorbe from Beer and Board Games, which is a show I work on a different channel. But then, because they didn't even know of me from this channel over there, however, after doing a little research on me, after they already invited me, they decided to start promoting the fact, like, oh, by the way, he also has his own channel, and then they started focusing more on that, because I think they realized that more people would know me from that than as, like, a background figure on a different show. But yeah, whatever. So FanQuest, yeah, if you are in Winnipeg or anywhere within that northern region of Canada, which is actually the southern region of Canada, come on out and meet me if you want to. My buddies Aaron Yanda and Matt Sloan of Chad Vader fame will be there as well, and we'll be doing a live Beer and Board Games there somewhere. So yeah, there's that. Then in June, I will be in Philadelphia for Too Many Games, which is a convention I was at last year. Too Many Games was actually the first convention I was ever invited to. It's also the first time I ever had a panel at anything. That first panel is on this channel. You can watch it pretty much in its entirety. Once again, I want to thank buddies of mine named D-Dave, that they've run a channel together. They filmed the panel for me. I will have additional panels at this year's Too Many Games. I'm not entirely certain what they'll be. I would imagine the first will be a Q&A, and then I know I'm going to be on D-Dave's panel. I'll probably do one with Shane, aka Rerez. Who knows? You know, sometimes you just kind of get other panels sprung up upon you. But if you're going to Too Many Games, I will be there. There's a lot of YouTubers going to that one. That one's like a big one for especially gaming YouTubers. James Rolfe will be there, the Angry Video Game Nerd. Justin Silvermania will be there. As mentioned, D-Dave will be there. RGT85 Sean will be there. Norm Gaming Historian will be there. Shane Rerez will be there. There's a lot of I believe Pat the NES Punk will be there. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're all going to be there, plus others. Yeah, there's a lot of people going to Too Many Games. So if you're anywhere near that part of the country and you have desire to meet any of us, come on out. That should be a lot of fun. It absolutely was great last year. In August, I will be going to the Missouri Game Con in St. Louis. I'm not 100% sure on other attendees at this point in time. I know I will obviously be there. That one is relatively close to me. It's just St. Louis. I'm in Chicago, so not too far for me, which is a nice little flight. But for anybody else in that area, if you want to come on out, again, last year was fun. It was the first time they had ever done it. And it was, I did a video on it. If you guys are curious, you can check it out. It was largely it was a one-day event where it was just a big room with a lot of people like selling stuff, and I had my own table and just hanging out with people, socializing, having a good time. I guess this year it'll be 2 days, and it's in a much bigger space. I think they rented out like a stadium or some shit, like where a hockey team plays. I'm not entirely certain, but it should be a lot of fun. And I know they're kind of going balls to the wall with it. They're going to make it a lot bigger than it was before. So I'm actually really excited about that. That should be a lot of fun as well. So shout out to Jake, aka Zebular, the guy who runs the thing, or one of the people who runs the thing, I should say, for putting that on and wanting me back. One other thing, I actually just remembered, one of the guests that will be there is Terry Diebold. He's actually the guy who's in possession of the ill-fated Nintendo PlayStation or SNES CD prototype. So that actually will be there. Terry's a hell of a nice guy. I've met him before at AVGC. And he kind of goes on tour with that thing in a bunch of places. He usually lets people hold it, take photos of it, sometimes even play it. So if you're going to the Missouri Game Con or you're even considering it, you get to see a piece of history. The one-of-a-kind Nintendo PlayStation prototype will be there. As well as I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure, I will be attending AVGC, a video game con, in September in Parsippany, New Jersey. If you're anywhere on the East Coast and you perhaps miss me at Too Many Games, because I know that's very nearby, you can come out to this one instead, whatever you prefer. That's got a lot of the same people attending. A lot of people who go to Too Many Games will also be at AVGC, although I don't know for certain who yet. That one's actually run by David Crossan of Classic Game Room fame. Like, if you ever watch Classic Game Room with, Mark, for the first 3 years of that show, it was him and David Crossan doing the show, and then David had to leave, but yeah, he's the one who runs this thing, so that it's really very cool. I do have some bad news on the convention front, though. Last year, I got to go up to Hamilton, which is Hamilton, Canada, which is near Toronto. And unfortunately, I will not be back there this year. I was not invited back. I'm sorry. I would have loved to have gone, but I guess they claim their budget was full on others, that's fine. I get it. So I will not be there. I do apologize but to anyone who's listening to this who came out to Con Bravo to meet me last year, thank you for doing that. But yeah, unfortunately, I will not be there this year. So I guess Canadians, the only time I'm up there this year, as far as I know, is for FanQuest in Winnipeg. So if you're in that area, come on out. So that's it for the conventions that I'm aware of currently. I have no idea what's going to spring up. A lot of stuff does. So I'll let you guys know always, of course, as soon as I hear anything. So the last thing I wanted to talk about before we get going here was some movies that are coming up this summer. And frankly, the ones I'm more excited about. And some of these will have come out by the time. In fact, I think one of them is out now at the time I'm recording this. But I haven't seen any of these, and I want to. And I'm curious which of these anybody has seen, what anybody thought of them, which ones you guys want to see, etc. Spider-Man Homecoming is first on my list. I really want to see that, although that movie was destroyed by its trailer. Now, I found something out about this. So Marvel movies, like the ones that are done in-house at Marvel Studios, like under Disney's umbrella, they tend to give you very ambiguous trailers for a very intentional reason. They don't want to ruin the movie. But while Spider-Man Homecoming is technically part of that, it also has some control still by Sony. And one of the things Sony gets to control is the trailer. So that a lot of people think, oh, that explains it, because Sony has a very large history of interfering with big budget movies and ruining them, which is why Spider-Man is so fucked up that they had to send it back to Marvel just to invigorate the brand again. So the trailer, if you saw the big trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming, you see the whole movie in the trailer, including ruining all the little nice things like Captain America having a cameo in it, stuff like that. And a lot of people think that was Tom Rothman specifically. He's like one of the guys who runs Sony Pictures, that he very, very well must have put his fingers in there and said, yeah, do all this because I think this is how it'll work. And of course, the fan reaction has been very predictable. Everybody's just going, oh, yeah, I feel like I just saw this movie now. So, I mean, I'm certainly not going to say the movie's going to bomb, but I think that they just did themselves an incredible disservice by doing that. And I really wish Sony would stay the fuck out of movies because they don't seem to know what the hell they're doing. I wish let me rephrase. I wish someone competent would start running Sony. Let's put it that way. I wish someone competent would start running Sony so that Sony was good at doing that. Let's put it that way. Regardless, from what I understand, Sony had almost no involvement in the movie itself other than to pay the bills. So what that means is that the movie itself will probably be good. It's just that we kind of got a lot of it wrecked in the trailers, which is too bad. So I would actually advise, if you somehow missed that trailer, continue to miss it and just go see the movie instead. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The trailer for that movie was actually very ambiguous, and you're not really sure what the hell's going on, but you know you want to see it. That's a Marvel movie done in-house at Marvel Studios. They control every aspect of it, including the trailer, so the trailer doesn't tell you every damn thing that's going to happen. So yeah, that one I'm really excited about, but that one has, of course, a lot to live up to. And at the point in time that I'm recording this, I believe this movie is already out, so I probably should just go see it. And by the time most of you are hearing this, it will have been out for a while, and most of you will have already seen it. But so I don't know how the actual movie is. But I do remember reading an interview with James Gunn. He's the director of the film, and it was interesting because he said the problem with the first one is completely different than the problem with the second one. The first one, nobody gave a shit about Guardians of the Galaxy as a property, so the only pressure on him was to take an untested property and prove that it could be something. which he did spectacularly. And now he has the stress of taking something that everyone now has a perceived notion of where it should go and living up to that expectation, which is not easy to do. It is really not easy to do that. That's why most sequels are not as well perceived as they should be, because everyone, once building off the back of a first one, has an idea of where it should go. Even though their visions are usually not fully realized, but they're usually very disappointed in whatever they see. So we'll see how Guardians of the Galaxy 2 turns out, although a lot of you probably already know. Alien Covenant, which I don't know if I'm going to see this one in theaters, to be honest with you. I haven't seen it. I don't think I've ever seen an Alien movie in theaters, because the first 4 all came out like when I was too young to even be seeing movies. Some of them came out before I was even born. Alien Covenant, like I didn't see Prometheus in theaters. I think funny enough, the only one I saw in theaters was Alien vs. Predator, which is like one of the worst ones, if not, that's not the worst. I'd still give that to Alien 3, but Alien Covenant actually looks pretty good, but it looks like kind of the same movie again, but it is directly connected to Prometheus and is trying to link things together, so I give him some credit for that. Because I liked Prometheus, even though it kind of didn't attempt to have a point until the very end, and even then it really didn't have one. So whatever. That said, I still want to see it. This one I was kind of surprised to even find out this was real. Pirates of the Caribbean 5. At first I had to check if it was 5 or 6, and to be honest with you, I'm still not even really sure, because I didn't find a clear answer on that. I'm pretty sure it's the 5th one, though, because I think what they did was they did a trilogy, then they randomly did a 4th one, and I think this is now the 5th one. Although it wouldn't surprise me if you're like, no, it is actually the 6th, and you're a moron, you should have checked more intensely. Yeah, I should have. You're absolutely right. But yeah, I'm not excited about this at all. I liked the first one, as everyone did. I remember seeing that second one in theaters and just being like, oh, God, why? And the third one I didn't see until like years later, until like they were like bargain bin to get the trilogy on Blu-ray, and that's what I did. Once I had rewatched them, I didn't hate them as much. I mean, I still liked the first one, but I didn't hate the second one as much because the disappointment factor was gone, because you knew what you were getting. And then with the third one, it was kind of like, whatever, who gives a shit? There's nothing to care about anymore. I still am yet to see the 4th one, and potentially 5th one if that's actually real. So this movie, I think, is still, in all seriousness, I think is the 5th one. I'm definitely not going to see it in theaters, and I'd probably see it, eventually. Wonder Woman, kind of the last, not the last vestige, but like the second to last vestige of the old DC Universe attempt. If you guys are unaware, so the DC Universe was started out with Man of Steel, then they did what the hell was it? Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. Now they got this coming up. Anyway, after Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice was such a social disaster, and not a financial disaster, although financially disappointing, they decided to kind of right the ship as best they could. They were too far along in production on Wonder Woman and Justice League to do much. With Wonder Woman, they really couldn't change much of anything, except maybe some editing. But with Justice League, they couldn't really change much except for making Ben Affleck executive producer, so he would have more control over Zack Snyder. I almost said Rob Schneider as if he was Zack Snyder, because Zack Snyder has a tendency to make a lot of really bad story decisions, because he tends to assume that he doesn't need to explain what's happening in his movies, which was a large part of the problem. His motives and stuff didn't really exist in Batman v Superman. Ben Affleck is better at that. He created Argo. He's created Oscar-winning films. Like the guy is good at telling a story, regardless if you like him or not. So that was their attempt to fix that. Then there was a lot of outside interference. I think it was AT&T actually recently bought a large aspect of Warner Brothers, so they're now kind of making changes over there, and so they're kind of reshaping the way the DC universe is going to go. So I don't remember exactly how this is going to work, but they have like a different slate of characters and movies and stuff that they're going to do, and they're trying to change things up over there. But they're going to keep the older movies in place, even though they were really horrifically damaging, and they're just going to be like, yeah, that happened, and now we're moving on. Wonder Woman, like I said, is kind of the last vestige of the original plan, because it wasn't going to be changed much. And then ultimately Justice League will be like the last thing. In fact, I think Justice League, they changed it so much that they aren't doing a part 2 anymore. Although that's what I heard. I don't know if that's actually true or not. But either way, I'm still excited. You know, like, Superman's my favorite character in comic books. I still like all that stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna see Wonder Woman in theaters, to be honest with you, because I have seen trailers for that. It's not really enticing me too much. She's never been like one of my favorite characters. You know, we'll see. If the reviews come out and everybody's like, this thing is fucking amazing, then yeah, I'll go check it out. You know, like, there's a theater near me that's only like $5 in the morning to go check out movies, so I would probably do it then. And then finally, War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, I'm still behind. I saw that James Franco one from a couple years ago. That shit was actually really good, much to my surprise. Then they did the second one, which I'm yet to watch, although I've had the Blu-ray of it forever. And I need to watch it. But now that there's a third one, I might have an excuse. War for the Planet of the Apes, which, if I actually sit down and commit to watching the previous two, like, in a row, then maybe I would go and sit there and watch that, and that'd be awesome. Those Planet of the Apes movies, like, I remember the first time I ever saw the original ones. The first one is a fucking masterpiece. Like, it's a fucking great film. It deserves to be in, if it's not already, it deserves to have its print in, like, the American Film Institute archive, along with Back to the Future and Star Wars and the other ones that are in there. The second one I remember being good, but not amazing. And then the ending being kind of, like, funny to a certain extent, like, funny odd. I don't want to say anything in case you haven't seen it. And then after that, it was like ridiculously downhill. Like, the third one involved like apes time traveling into the 1970s, but it was like an alternate version of the 1970s. Or no, sorry, it was the regular 1970s. I apologize, regular 1970s. And everything, it was just a weird story. And then the fourth one, I remember being laughably insulting to our intelligence. That's the one where the apes actually rise up and they like take over humanity. And you watch it and you go, there is no fucking way. Because you're talking about one smart ape and a bunch of just regular apes that he like freed from the zoo. Or some shit, and like apes in that universe had become pets because all cats and dogs were wiped out. I know this is spoilers, but trust me, that movie's hilarious. It won't ruin it really. And then he just gets like annoyed that they're pets, so he just decides we're gonna just, you know, defeat humanity. So they do literally guerrilla warfare. Ha ha ha. They guerrilla warfare against humanity. So there's like literally scenes of like US troops like fully armed, like the guys who go into like Iraq, you know, those dudes. They've got tanks, they're all set, they're driving down the street. It's like, okay, logically they're about to destroy all these apes, and all the apes have is like pitchforks. I'm not even kidding. As I remember, there's a scene where they throw a net on a tank and it just stops working, which might be the origin of that joke. And then like you're just like, what? And then like by the end of the movie, all of humanity is like for some reason destroyed by apes, and even though there's no conceivable logistical possible way that would ever occur. And then the fifth one is like, it's like 2 years later and we're all living in the forest. Like there's nothing left of humanity and shit. It makes no sense at all. And there's like a human rebel insurgency that's trying to take the planet back over. And then by the end of the movie, it's the moral of the story is like, apes and humans are both equally intelligent. We'll all just learn to live together in peace. And it's like, this is hilariously stupid. No wonder this franchise died. But I'm glad they brought it back in a competent way, not the Tim Burton weird way. Although I kind of liked that movie, but as everybody else did, I always hated the ending because you were like, what did that mean? And you never found out. So anyway, yeah, I guess that's it for like movies that are coming up. And I guess that's also it for this month on the podcast. Please give me feedback on this, guys, again, because Chip wasn't here. I expect him to be back next month. Like I said, he just has the flu. So yeah, that's it for now. I want to thank all of you for listening. Hope you had a good time. Hope you had a safe month. Continue to be awesome. I'll see you guys later.